Hello, my name is Brent Iverson. I am the Dean of the School of Undergraduate Studies. Welcome to the University Lecture Series, and tonight, a conversation with Dr. Leonard Moore. At the end, we will have a question and answer period, so please send in your questions by hitting the Ask the Professor button under the video stream. Race in America in 2020. There is so much we could talk about. So many things have happened and continue to happen. Tonight is about talking about race. Conversations about race are difficult for many, but we have to have them. We need to listen, share our ideas, and grow. You may not agree with things that are being said tonight. That's okay. You may agree with everything that's been said tonight. That's okay too. The important thing is that we all listen, that we're open to new ideas so we can learn from each other. That is what education is about. That is what UT Austin is all about. And that is what tonight is all about. We are blessed at UT to have many of the world's finest faculty. We heard from two incredible UT Austin faculty scientists last night. Their work is leading the worldwide battle against COVID-19. Feel free to check out a recording of last night's lectures on the UGS website. But tonight, we are also going to hear from an incredible faculty member. He's a national thought leader in the areas of race and combating racism. I am honored to introduce Dr. Leonard Moore, the Vice President for Diversity and Community Engagement and the George Littlefield Professor of American History at the University of Texas at Austin. You've read his bio, so you already know he is the best person to lead our conversation tonight. Dr. Moore?
Thank you, Dean Iverson, and thank you for your leadership. And students, before I go any further, please take advantage of all the amazing resources in the School of Undergraduate Studies. So it is good to be here tonight. UT, what's up? I'm Leonard Moore. I'm 49. I am married with 3 kids. I have a college freshman. I have a high school junior, and I have a high school freshman. Been married 19 years. Me and my wife celebrated 19 years of marriage last week. And the reason why I share that is because, sometimes you get a professional bio, and while I've been blessed in many ways to have a phenomenal career, that is not the thing I'm most proud of. I'm most proud of being an excellent husband and I think an excellent father. So I just wanted to throw that out there today because sometimes in this hustle and bustle of life, of a career, trying to be successful and all this kind of stuff, we don't talk about the family enough. And that is something that is central to my identity. My identity as a husband and father are very, very important to me. So tonight I want to do a couple things. I want to talk about 3 things that are going around us right now. And I'm going to try to make them all connect. I may not be successful, but I'm going to do my best. I want to talk about racial justice. I want to talk about artificial intelligence. And I want to talk about the disrupted EDU. And then we're going to talk about, with all of these three things going on at the same time, I'm going to talk about what I would do if I was in your shoes as an 18 or 19 or 20-year-old first or second year student at the University of Texas. Like Dean Iverson said, you may not agree with anything. You may agree with it all. You may take some and throw some away. But nonetheless, just let's have a good conversation tonight. This spring and summer have been like any other in terms of race relations in America. Many of us watched in horror the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And oftentimes when I talk to my friends and they say, Leonard, I don't understand what people mean when they talk about systemic or institutional racism, I say, well, if you look at the George Floyd murder and what went on afterward, I said, I can give you in many ways an illustration of what systemic or institutional racism looks like. And I want you all to follow me. I'll take you through 5 or 6 or 7 steps. Step 1, a police officer in broad daylight put his knee on George Floyd's neck for more than 8 minutes. Step 2, even after George Floyd lost consciousness, the 4 officers surrounding him refused to render any kind of aid. Step 3, even after the ambulance arrived on the scene, the officer kept his knee on Mr. Floyd's neck for an additional 60 seconds. Step 4, when the officers filled out the police report, they lied on the police report. So steps 1 through 4 show the complicity of the Minneapolis Police Department. Let's move to another entity. Step 5. When the district attorney had a news conference the next day, despite all the video evidence, he said, there is other evidence that I haven't revealed yet that does not give me reason to make an indictment. Step 6. When the district attorney eventually decided to indict the officers, they were indicted on lesser charges, third-degree manslaughter charges. So the first phase deals with the complicity of the Minneapolis Police Department. The second phase deals with the complicity of the district attorney's office. And now step 7, and this takes the cake. When the medical examiner, we call it a coroner in Texas, when the medical examiner released the cause of death for George Floyd, the medical examiner said that he died from hypertension or a bad heart, that he didn't die from strangulation or having circulation cut off. So you got the Minneapolis Police Department, the district attorney's office, and then lastly, the medical examiner, follow me now, all conspiring to protect the rights of one white police officer. The police department, the district attorney's office, and the medical examiner. Despite the video evidence that was clear to everybody when we first saw it. And so when people complain or talk about systemic racism, that is what they are talking about. That incident dealt with 3 systems: the police department, the district attorney's office, and also the medical examiner. Now, here's the killer. No pun intended. Here's the crazy thing. If this kind of stuff happens in liberal Minnesota with a liberal governor, a liberal mayor, and a liberal district attorney, what kind of things are taking place in states that are much more hostile to people of color and things of that nature? So one thing you got to understand, and I tell my students all the time, you got to understand different perspectives. We live in different worlds, but too often, because we surround ourselves in an echo chamber, we only hang out with people who look like us and think like us. We never get exposed to a different way of seeing the world. And there is nothing wrong with getting different perspectives. It makes you a better person. One of my friends said, well, Leonard, man, I'm getting tired of all this race stuff. And I reminded him that the civil rights movement lasted 6,041 days from the lynching of Emmett Till in 1955 all the way to the Gary Convention in 1972. And if you think about it, it has only been in many ways 4 or 5 months since the deaths of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd. My point is, we may be here a while. This isn't something you just get over with. But I'm excited because I think we are having conversations in America that we should have had a long time ago. That's racial justice. Let me come to the next phase of this. I want to talk about the disrupted EDU. And like I said, I'm going to try to make all this connect, and I may not, but I'm going to give it my best shot. Many of you, regardless of your background, you didn't expect that your first year of college would be like this, right? Many of you had these big plans. I'm going to come to UT. I'm going to go to the game. I'm going to hang out on West Campus. I'm going to hang out on Riverside. I'm going to kick it on 6th Street. I'm going to meet some friends. I'm going to fall in love. You wanted the full experience. But your senior year got jacked up in high school. That spring, no prom. I don't know if you had a senior skip day or something like that. And then your summer was different. And then some of you all had to start your college years off in your bedroom or at your parents' dining room table or in a residence hall here at UT. And it's not what you signed up for. And so what I'm trying to illustrate is that When I talk about the disrupted EDU, I'm talking about the college experience as we know it has changed. And the question is, will it ever go back to the way it was pre-COVID? Right now, I teach two classes, class on the Black Power movement and a class called Race in the Age of Trump. I have 550 students in one class and about 530 students in the other. And do you know, with my Trump class on Mondays and Wednesdays from 10 to 11, I cannot see a single student. In my Black Power class, Tuesday and Thursday from 11 to 12:15, I cannot see a single student. I am standing up at home looking through a laptop screen or a little webcam, and it is tough for me. But the question is, what will college look like post-COVID? Because I'm here to tell you, people have been doing things by Zoom, by WebEx, and all this other stuff. And understand, people are developing new models. The residential model as we know it right now. It will continue, but it may be different. So what does that mean for young people trying to get a degree and go out into the world and be marketable? We don't know. One thing I do know is that the way we've been conducting business has got to change. And here's where the problem starts. Many of you were asked at some point in life, what do you want to major in? Most of you didn't know. You have no idea at 16 or 17 what you want to do the rest of your life, so we just pick stuff. And sometimes we pick stuff because it sounds sexy. Now, let me ask y'all a question. If I told you I majored in social work, does that sound sexy? Would I get any likes for that? If I posted on Instagram, I got into UT and I majored in social work. But what if I said I'm majoring in civil engineering? Oh, I get all kind of likes because that's a sexy major. And so what we do to you, we put you in this factory model of education where you got to pick a major, and then we put you in these classes. And the goal is like, if you finish all these classes, then somehow you are competent. That model is about to change big time. And we got to be ready for it. The third piece, artificial intelligence. This is technology doing the job of humans. Now, I'm not very tech savvy. I told my class this morning, the first time I ever did a PowerPoint, I've been a professor 24 years. The first time I've ever did a PowerPoint was like 2 days ago, and I can't believe how easy it was. I went and got some images, I had to like drag and drop them, and then I had to like stretch the picture out over PowerPoint, and I was really happy with myself. So I'm not tech savvy. So artificial intelligence, it scares me to death. It scares me. And let me tell you a quick story that happened this morning. Now, I am a man of faith. If anybody knows me, I tell people I'm an out of the closet Christian, all right? And so last night I was praying, because then that's my faith tradition. I was praying last night. Then I get up this morning. I go on YouTube for something. I was trying to watch a lecture by an author. And, you know, had videos on the screen popped up on YouTube. And there was a sermon from a pastor that really just spoke to me at that time at what I needed. And I called my wife and I said, can you believe this? The minute I opened up my computer, this message was on there. I really believe it was just for me. And so artificial intelligence, to me, it is crazy. It can take something, I can pull out my phone, search something on Google, then go home and get on my desktop, search something else, but then ads will pop up based upon what I searched the day before. And I know y'all saying, Dr. Moore, what is the big deal? To a 49-year-old, that is a big deal. But when we talk about artificial intelligence, you are talking about technology doing the job of humans. They are predicting that within 20 to 30 years, artificial intelligence will allow a computer, will be able to write an essay, will be able to drive a truck, will be able to perform surgery, will be able to write a New York Times bestseller. This is insane. And so in many ways, while we celebrate technology and the advancements, guess what's going to happen to the economy? And there's this big debate by economists over whether or not artificial intelligence will increase the number of jobs available, or will it shrink them? I will argue that it will shrink the number of jobs available. Let me give you an example. 1962, the two biggest companies in America in 1962 were AT&T and General Motors. AT&T had around 650,000 employees. General Motors had about 575,000 employees. Anybody have any idea how many employees Amazon has right now? I believe Amazon has around 18,000 employees. Large platform, but because of technology and technological advances, they don't need as many people. All right? So artificial intelligence, it will have an impact on jobs. It will have an impact on the economy. And so racial justice stuff is what you see in front of you. We are living in this every single day. And like I said, it's not going anywhere. The disrupted EDU. We don't know what this will be like when it's over, right? But something is going to happen to higher ed post-COVID-19. And thirdly, the thing that is so invisible to us, but impacts our lives so much, is artificial intelligence. So the question is, with all these three things going on at one time, and I believe that they are all interconnected on some levels, as a 19 or 20-year-old, what does it mean for me to be in college? What does it mean for me to be here? And how would I structure my college years if I understand that racial justice issues will be around for at least the next decade? It's going to be front and center. If college is going to look different, what does that mean? And lastly, if the economy will change as a result of artificial intelligence, then how do you prepare yourself to enter this crazy world? I'm going to give you 6 things you need to do, 6 skills that you need to have when you leave UT if you are going to thrive. If you're going to thrive. 6 skills. Now, I want to apologize to you. My generation needs to apologize to your generation because when you all were in high school, we never even asked you what you learned. It was all about what's your GPA. It was all about what is your class rank. And because we never had questions about what you learned, guess what? Many of us would prefer to get an A in a class where we learn nothing as opposed to getting a C in a class where we learn a whole lot. We didn't ask you what you learned. We just said, what are your grades? What's your class rank? Test scores. Do you realize the difference between somebody with a 1340 SAT and somebody with a 1400 SAT, maybe 4 or 5 questions? But this is how crazy it is. We aren't teaching kids to think or to pursue what they love. It's all about a number. I got to get this GPA. I got to get this test score, because if I get this test score, I can get into this school. And if I get this school, I can look smart. And if I get that degree, I'll get a job and I'll be popular. And I can put the bumper sticker on the back of my car. The soft skills, because what we are entering now, we are entering the talent economy. I told a group of bankers in New York City 2 weeks before the pandemic hit, it was 30 of them, 26 from the US, 1 from Kenya, 1 from the Vatican, 2 from Switzerland. Here's what I told them. The leaders of the future are gonna have to learn how to lead an organization through racial crisis. Here's what typically happens when leaders are confronted with the racial crisis. Number 1, they deny its existence. They act like it doesn't even exist. Number 2, if they acknowledge its existence, they put their head in the ground and they hope it goes away. Number 3, if they acknowledge it exists and it doesn't go away, number 3, they look for somebody to blame. You know why? Because they don't have the skill set to handle it. We have trained people to be narrowly focused in a certain area. And one reason I believe that the American economy struggles is because our leaders don't have the soft skills. And so I'm gonna give you 6 soft skills you need to have when you hit the job market so you can be prepared to thrive and operate in this new economy. Again, we are no longer in the credential economy. The credential economy says, I have a degree from X school. I have a master's degree from this school, therefore I'm smart. Employers are like, yeah, the degree is fine, and I'm glad you went to UT. I'm glad you went to Cornell. I'm glad you went to Morehouse or Spelman. But what have you done, and what skills do you have, and what talents are you bringing to the table? Let me give you 6. Number 1, you got to be able to operate in ambiguity, meaning you should be so solid up here that if you get hired somewhere, you don't need a roadmap. You don't need anybody to give you directions. One of my good friends, Ruben Cantu, he works in our office. He runs our inclusive innovation platform. He tells employers, if you hire one of my students, if they come to you and say, what do I do next? You fire them. He said, because I haven't done my job. They should know what comes next. We were in South Africa several years ago. I run a study abroad program in Cape Town, South Africa, one in Dubai and one in Beijing, China. Most of the kids we take, first generation kids, black, brown kids, working class white kids from East Texas and West Texas. We're in South Africa. In South Africa, we divide our students up and they go to different placements. So our health profession students will go work in a hospital. Our business students will go work with entrepreneurs. Students with more of an education background, social work, helping professions, they will go work with nonprofit agencies. And so one time we took a young man named Brandon, architecture major, and guess what? His placement was at a daycare. He's an architecture major, and his placement was at a daycare. He said, Dr. Moore, I'm an architecture major. You can't find an architectural firm for me to work at? I said, no, man, I can't find one. And he said, well, Dr. Moore, what do I do at this daycare? Here's what I told him. I said, you'll figure it out. Now, in his mind, he done paid a couple $1,000s for this trip. He's an architecture major. And Dr. Moore has him placed at a daycare. And Dr. Moore tells him to figure it out because they had to do a big project. You know what he did? He sat down with the owner of the daycare. And he basically spent 3 weeks doing a full sketch on how they could triple their space to serve more kids in this low-income area of Cape Town. 3 weeks on it. It was phenomenal. Gets back to UT Austin. He applies for an internship at what some people have said is the premier architectural firm in the world in Switzerland. And guess what he sends along as part of his dossier? He sends along the sketch and the model he did for this daycare in low-income Cape Town, South Africa, in the townships. And he has been in Switzerland for the last 3 years, working and finishing up his degree. But he understood how to operate in ambiguity because Dr. Moore told him what? You got to figure it out. Second thing, you got to be adaptable. When we take our students to Beijing, China, study abroad programs, for our study abroad program, it is straight up culture shock to them. And the first thing we do on the first day we get to China, don't tell nobody, we deliberately get UT students lost in China on the first day. We play a game, we play the Amazing Race. And the goal, they don't know it, but the goal for them is to get lost in a city of 28 million people. Well, Dr. Moore, man, why do you do that? What if they get lost? You can't be black in China and be lost. You can't be Latino in China and be lost. You will never be lost over there, all right? But we want them to learn how to be adaptable. And so is the bathroom situation challenging? Absolutely. Can the food be challenging? Absolutely. Can the internet access be challenging in China? Absolutely. But I tell the students, you gotta be adaptable. You gotta learn how to adapt to different environments, and you gotta understand that if you're really gonna go far professionally, you gotta be able to adjust and still excel. Gotta be able to do it. You can't be so rigid. And America can't be, if you're going global, America can't be your reference for everything. You gotta adapt to the culture, to the people, to the environment, because the environment will not adapt to you. You gotta adapt to it. Again, we're in the talent economy, not the credential economy. Number 3, got to be able to lead. Here's a question. Is leadership an innate skill or can it be taught? Is it innate or can it be taught? My dad, who passed in 2001, he was a finance guy, worked for Internal Revenue Service for 36, 37 years. He basically did a lot of work with organized crime, the mafia. He audited a lot of those organized crime rings. And he would do leadership training primarily with pastors. And if you know anything about a pastor, a church is a volunteer organization. Nobody has to come. So he would do these amazing leadership things with pastors. And the first thing he told new pastors, he told them 2 things. Number 1, when you get there, don't touch anything. Your job when you get there is just to love the people. Because although you have the title of pastor, you haven't earned it yet. All right, that was number 1. Number 2, he said, I want you to get a big circular table. And he said, why? He said, because when you have your church leadership meetings, what I don't want you to do, I don't want you standing up talking down at people, physically, theater style. If you get a circular table, everybody is equal. And so when I would hear him giving all this leadership advice, it just amazed me because I believe leadership can be taught. But I think you got to be able to lead people. But understand this, it is easy to be critical of leaders. It is easy to hate on them, to talk about why they're not doing this, why they're not doing that. But when you get in the chair, you see things other people don't see. Many of you all may be aspiring to some kind of campus leadership position. Let me give you one hint from Dr. Moore, one quick tip. If the meeting is supposed to start at 6:30, you start the meeting at 6:30, even if only 2 people are there. But here's what we do. Well, it's 6:30. We're going to give people about 5 or 10 more minutes to come. We do that all the time. And you know what you've done? You have just disrespected the people who stopped what they were doing to get there on time. The leadership piece. I love people who are bold and who say, Dr. Moore, that ain't going to work. Dr. Moore, what I have is going to work. But we got to step up and say, you know what? I'm willing to be accountable. I want y'all to follow me. This is the direction we are going. But too many people cave when a leadership opportunity presents itself. Now, let me say this. You can lead with no title. I can come to your student organization meeting and sit there for 10 minutes, and I can tell you, you don't have to tell me who the president is or vice president is. I can tell you within 10 minutes who the real leader is of that organization. So understand, you don't have to have the title to be a lead, but you got to have leadership ability. Got to be able to motivate people and get them gravitating around a common goal and a common agenda. And what a leader does, a leader lets every person know how critical their role is to the organization moving forward. Number 4, you got to think like an entrepreneur. I didn't say start a business. I said you got to think like an entrepreneur. You got to be entrepreneurial. So if you're working at Nissan or Apple or Nike, you have a job description, but you are constantly trying to find ways where you can get new experiences within the organization, where can you solve problems? That's what I'm talking about. Being entrepreneurial, seeing opportunities even before they present themselves, being able to look around the corner and say, you know what, I'm gonna make a pivot in this direction, because that's what entrepreneurs do. Thinking entrepreneurially, again, is not starting a business. And my job as a professor and a vice president, I try to think like an entrepreneur. My wife will tell you, I have a notebook by my bed, and I'm always trying to find ways to enhance the student experience. Our goals in DDC are twofold. Number 1, to create amazing opportunities for students, and number 2, to help people in the community get a better quality of life. And so I'm thinking of ideas, no matter how crazy they are. I'm thinking like an entrepreneur. What if we launch this? What if we launch this? And guess what? Some of it may not work, but we gonna try. All right? Number 5, gotta get some global experience. Me and my kids and my wife, we've been on 6 continents. We got 1 continent to go. Anybody have any idea what continent that is? It is Antarctica. And my wife said, black folk don't go down there, all right? But we gonna go, all right? My daughter, she's a junior at Round Rock High School. Tell you what happens when you get global experience. She goes and applies for a job at the Round Rock Sports Center. It's like a big athletic facility there. And they get tons of applications. And on her resume at the top, it said global experience. She had Cape Town on there, Beijing, China on there, Sydney, Australia on there. She had Shanghai on there, and she had London and Paris, some other stuff on there. Do you know that the manager of that facility lived in Cape Town, South Africa for a year? So guess what they talked about during the interview? All they talked about was Cape Town, South Africa. All right? So here's what I'm talking about, global experience. Here's what I'm talking about. When you go see the world, when you get out of UT for a little bit, for the summer, study abroad or something like that, you gain just perspective that you would never have if you just stayed here. I know y'all love Texas. One of my students said, Dr. Moore, I'm not leaving Texas because I love Whataburger. Whataburger ain't all that, by the way, just to let you all know. But we got to get global experiences. So here's what we do in the DDCE. We got 3 study abroad programs. 4, Dubai, a spring break program in Dubai, 10 days. We got a month-long program in Beijing, China, a month-long program in Cape Town, South Africa, and we got a 2-week program in Costa Rica. So check this out. Here's what we do. We say, you know what? For $10,000, you can do Dubai, Cape Town, and Beijing, China. So when students come to Beijing with us, here's what we tell them. Top of your resume, put your Beijing experience, put where your internship was, and write it in Mandarin, or have Google Translate, put it in Mandarin. Do that the summer after your freshman year. Spring break of your sophomore year, you come to Dubai with us. That's more of a company hop. 10 days, we go see Dubai, go see Abu Dhabi. We hang out at NYU Abu Dhabi, hang out with students. We learn about the economy. We learn about study futurism and sustainability. You get back to Austin, you put that on your resume, and you have Google Translate, put it in Arabic. Here we go. The summer of your sophomore year, after your sophomore year, come to South Africa with us. You have an internship there in the community. When you get back to Austin, you're going to put in your resume, and you're going to have Google Translate, put it in Zulu, Afrikaans, or Xhosa. Now, before you are a junior in college, follow me. Before you are a junior in college, you done been to the Middle East, you done been to China, and you done been to Africa, and you got it on your resume. What is gonna happen now at the end of your junior year when you're applying for those big time internships on Wall Street, on Capitol Hill, Silicon Valley? What's gonna happen? Your resume is gonna look so much different than everybody else's. Not because you got better grades, not because you are smarter, because you are bringing something to the table most folk don't have. You got global experience, and you ain't been to London or Paris. You've been to Beijing, you've been to Cape Town, South Africa, and you've been to Dubai. Lastly, number 6, you gotta be culturally intelligent. What does that mean? What does being culturally intelligent mean? It means you may not understand Black Lives Matter. You may say it's crazy. You may say it's Marxist and all this other stuff. But guess what? You need to understand it. You ain't got to agree with it. You ain't got to like it. You got to understand it. When I went to Dubai a couple years ago, well, back in November, hear all these stories about Dubai. And the first time I went, they said, well, Dr. Moore, man, they're so oppressive to women. Women can't even sit on the same subway car as men. All right. So you hear this stuff. We get over there, get to the subway. Me and Dr. Walk get to the subway for the first time. And we walk on the train and we noticed that this one car was all women, all right? So in our perspective, oh man, they got the women all separated. But we got on another part of the train. There were men and women sitting together. Here's what we realized. Women are free to sit anywhere on the train in Dubai. They created a couple of special cars for women because they were being harassed on the train. And they wanted a place where they could ride the train safely and be free of harassment. First time I went to South Africa, 2014, I met one of our community partners. And me and my American mind, I get off the plane, I meet with them the next day. I want to get down to business. I was very transactional because that's what we do in America. You know what? It took us 2 weeks before we got down to business. You know why? Because the culture says they want to get to know you. They want to eat with you. They want to spend time with you. They want to know about your family. They want to know about your faith. Because to them, it's not transactional. So you got to be culturally intelligent. You got to understand other cultures, other faiths, other identities. And again, you don't have to agree with any of it. But the sign of someone who is intelligent is that you should be able to walk into any environment and understand the culture you are walking into. That way you won't say something stupid. So you got to be able to operate in ambiguity, got to be adaptable, got to lead, got to have some leadership ability, got to think like an entrepreneur, got to be entrepreneurial, got to get some global experience, and you got to be culturally intelligent. Now, this is a lot different than what we've been taught. Many of us came to UT and were just told grades, 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 grades. But if you aren't careful, if all you are about are grades, if you leave here with a 3.7 or 3.8, but your resume looks like this, nothing, you will not have success on the job market. And I really believe we are entering a period where grades won't even be as significant in the future as they have been now. Now, I understand some of y'all want to go to med school, professional school. Absolutely, grades are important. I finished high school with a 1.6 grade point average. I had a 15 on the ACT, and I had a 720 on the SAT. That was me. And I'm a middle class black kid from Cleveland, Ohio. That was my profile. But I think I have been able to do well because I picked up a lot of the soft skills. I know how to connect with people. I'm entrepreneurial. I know how to operate in ambiguity, all that kind of stuff. And it has served me well. So my challenge for you, as we deal with this artificial intelligence coming 1,000 miles an hour, as you deal with the racial justice stuff going on, and it ain't about to stop. And as you try to figure out what is college going to look like post-COVID, understand there's a lot of opportunity out there for you. But we're going to expand our mind a little bit, and we're going to understand that we are in a different time where it's not based upon the credential. It is based upon the talent. Thank you so much, and I think we have time for question and answer.
Okay, Leonard, thank you. You know what? You made it clear I have to reintroduce myself. So I want to say I may be a dean here, but that's no big deal. I am a professor who's been here for 30 years. I'm very proud of that. But even more proud of the fact I've been married to the same wonderful woman for 37 years.
Awesome.
We have 4 great daughters, all of whom have earned degrees at UT Austin.
Awesome.
Hook 'em.
Awesome.
Okay, so we have a number of different questions that are coming in, and a lot of them are shaped exactly the same way.
Okay.
How do I have conversations that are difficult about race and other important issues with people who maybe disagree with me? What's the best approach to doing that?
I think the best approach, one thing about being a college campus is that people are looking for friends. And I'm not saying you go meet somebody and say, hey, what do you think about Trump? Are you a liberal or Republican? No, all I'm saying is it should be organically. One thing I do when I have adults in a room, I put them in groups and I say, okay, we're going to spend 10 minutes. We're going to go around the room and you're going to describe the neighborhood you grew up in. So you got to find points of agreement. Just talk to people and say, you know what, can you help me understand this? I grew up in a different environment and I really want to understand this perspective. And typically people will give it to you. Here's the deal. The conversations don't have to be that tough. The conversations are only tough when you're trying to convince somebody to see the world the way you do. But if you come to the table not trying to convince people of anything, guess what? There is no pressure. After the Trump election in 2016, me and my wife, we invited 6 couples over our house, live in the neighborhood. like 4 white couples, 2 black couples. And we just had a conversation. I said, y'all are some phenomenal neighbors. I get the impression you all voted for Trump. I don't know if you did or not. I said, but can you just give me some insight? Here's what they said. They said, well, one said, I voted for Trump, Leonard, because I own a business. I think he'll be better because he'll help my business better. I think the economy better. Another person said, well, Leonard, my faith is important to me. And although I know Trump's morality is questionable, I really believe he will appoint federal judges who will support Christian principles. And another person said, Leonard, I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm a white man and I feel like white men get blamed for everything. And I just don't know if I'll have any opportunity. So I think Trump will stick up for people like me. Now, here's the point. It wasn't about me agreeing with them. I appreciated hearing their perspective. And that's what I want to illustrate. You got to hear perspectives and not try to get people to agree with you. I listen to Rush Limbaugh as much as I can, and I disagree with everything he says. But I like listening to it because I appreciate the perspective. Here we go now. And I understand that Rush has a constituency that most people ignore.
I'll tell you what, you got a lot of shout outs for the 6 important elements. And I feel like as Dean of UGS, I have to point out that it's not a coincidence we have 6 flags. And they don't line up exactly, but if you get a UT Austin degree and satisfy the 6 flags, you are marching down that road very close to picking up those soft skills. That's what it's all about. And you should be very proud if you get a degree from UT Austin, you've already done that. Now, you need to go out and do it some more, but it's there, and that's what the flags are. That's exactly why there's something that we like. Now, another question that I see that I'm kind of interested in, can you more explicitly tie in race and AI?
Yes. So here's the biggest thing. For a lot of black and brown folk who are at the low end of the labor market, those jobs are gone. Gone. They're not coming back. They're gone. Over the next 20, 30 years, hundreds of thousands of entry-level jobs will completely disappear from the market. And if you understand that black and brown people deal with racial discrimination as it is, what happens when that labor market constricts even more, all right? So I'm not talking about the facial recognition technology and stuff like that. I'm talking about this as there's a bare bones, jobs are gonna completely disappear. And they are disappearing even as we speak. COVID-19 gave many companies and organizations cover, I would argue, to get rid of workers because now they have a legitimate justification for doing. They may not have a business reason for doing it, but they have a calamity. And what some people say is, don't let a good crisis go to waste. What they're talking about is you get rid of the people in the departments you don't need anymore.
Okay, here's another question. And I think as a white student at a university that has a distinct history of racism, how do I better understand my peers of color?
I think you better understand your peers of color. I would say take up a Black Studies course, a Mexican American Studies course. I think that is a good start. But I don't want you all to think this is some kind of project. You know what I mean? It's not a project. You may want to listen to a black news show. If you people in the hall, have lunch with people and just have a conversation. But let me say this. Does UT have its issues? Without a doubt, without a doubt. But I think UT is an amazing place when you look at many ways at our demographic. Now, 48% white, about 26% Latino, 5.5% African American, and we got to get that up more. About 21, 22, 23% Asian, and about 10% international, all right? Now, I understand in some colleges like engineering and business, that diversity is not there. But in a signature course, it should be there. In some of your entry-level courses, that diversity should be there. So I would just say when y'all are having conversations in class, just dive in. But again, it's not about you having the answers. Just say, can you give me some perspective on X? All right? And I think if you take that approach, I think you'll have some success.
I love that. And one of the things I like to say to students, which just mirrors all of this, is don't take your college experience and try to figure out what you can get out of try to figure out what you can get out of your college experience.
Absolutely.
And that's the important way to think about this. Okay, there is a lot of questions. You have people so excited about study abroad, you have no idea. So, what I want to do is I want to encourage people. There's a study abroad office, there's a global studies office. Please look online at UT Austin. There are a lot of opportunities. I think you have about 1,000 people wanting to get into your program right now. So I'm just warning you about that. Okay. Okay. Leonard, do you have any other thoughts, anything that's kind of come up that you want to talk about?
Let me say this. I think the true joy in coming to UT, the joy in coming to a place like UT, right? Because some of y'all were auto admit, some of y'all were busting your butt for years, some of y'all were in like 20 student organizations in high school, some of y'all were lying too about that, but you wanted to get here and you were excited when you got here. So the joy at UT, it is not necessarily the coursework, and let me explain what I mean. History 101 is going to be the same here as it is at Michigan, as it is at Grambling State, as it is at USC. All right? The joy of coming to a place like UT is all the out of classroom experiences you can get. We took 80 students to Cape Town, South Africa. Most schools don't have that kind of capacity. And what I used to do, even recently, as a vice president and a professor, sometimes I'll walk through the McCombs building and I'll just look at the bulletin board. All the things that are going on in McCombs. May walk over to Cockrell, look at the bulletin board. May walk to liberal arts, look at the bulletin board. I'll go to the UT website and just see what's going on that day. Because I'm here to tell you folks, the opportunities here are unreal. And if you're just coming here for the coursework, you are completely missing out. It's not just the coursework, it's the experiential opportunities and it's meeting people. I want y'all to do this. I want you all to go join a student organization that you know nothing about. They have one student organization that teaches you how to pick locks. Now that's crazy, right? And I as a black man, I wouldn't do that. But they have all these kind of crazy student organizations that you could join, and that's where you meet people. One of my roommates in Jackson, started school at Jackson State University in Jackson, Mississippi. It was a rich experience, and although it was an HBCU, it was very diverse. I was a big-time ping pong player. You had a Star Wars club. You had a chess club. Get involved in something so you can really begin to build relationships with people, build community, and that is what makes a UT experience worth it.
Here's one that just came in, and I like this. What do you do if opportunities seem not to come your way?
So here's the thing about UT. At UT, nobody's going to knock on your door and gesture and say opportunity. When I talked about the amazing resources that undergraduate studies has, folk, you got to take advantage of it. This is the last time in your life where people are paid to help you. And the one thing about UT staff, they are very nice and they want to help. They want to help. But sometimes they're like, where the students at? So folk, you have to be, right? Somewhat entrepreneurial. This is not my coursework, but I'm gonna just walk around campus and I'm gonna see what I find. And you gotta do that and understand people are waiting and people wanna help you get to where you're trying to go.
I think this sums it up. It says, this isn't exactly a question, but thank you so much for lecturing, Dr. Moore. It was so enjoyable, informative. I'm so interested to study abroad in your programs. Thanks again. I think that's the absolute best way to end it, and hook 'em horns.
Hook 'em horns. Thank y'all so much. All right.